Today I'm going to be taking you through a session that is going to be a general all-rounder and work on a little bit of abdominals, a little bit of glutes, a little bit of mobility and stretching, and it's going to be suitable for all levels. So I'm going to start you off in a nice hands and knees position. So you'll come forwards over to your hands and knees. So I'm going to start you here with your cat stretch. So you're going to tuck your tailbone underneath you, roll through the rest of the spine, rounding up into what I call angry cat position. Getting a nice squeeze of the glutes here to get that tuck, and then release the tailbone as if you're sending your tail up to the ceiling. And then open the chest away from the floor. So you'll pull the shoulder blades away from the ears, and then we'll tuck back through again, back into your angry cat. So rolling all the way up, imagine that there's a hot candle lit underneath your belly button. You're lifting away from the heat. And then we release the tailbone, and now get a nice stretch through the mid-back as we open the chest and pull the shoulders away from the ears. And then tucking back through. The whole time you do this, we are focusing on having a long neck. So as you tuck under here, you stretch the neck, and then imagine you're holding a peach underneath your chin. Keep that as you roll to happy cat and lengthen through, so we're not shortening the back of the neck. And again, tucking back underneath you, getting that squeeze of the tummy muscles, squeeze the bottom muscles, really lifting away from the floor, pushing wide into the shoulders. And then into happy cat here, where we lengthen through the upper back. We're then going to hold the happy cat through our upper back, but then send the tailbone away as if you're making an angry cat with your lower back. Tuck your toes underneath you, pull the shoulders away from the ears, and then we're going to float the knees off, but by lifting through the abdominals. I want you to now feel a connection through your pubic bone to your belly button, like you've got a little elastic band that you're tightening. And this is where we've got a nice flat back position as you're lifting the chest away through that happy cat in the upper back, but then we're lifting the abdominals, giving you that little bit of a flatter lower back, sending the tailbone away like an angry cat. So we've got a nice straight spine. You imagine it being a table, and we're holding this here a bit like a plank. I want you to make sure you've still got a nice long neck, so you're holding this imaginary peach. Your eye line should be looking down towards your fingertips, and then you can relax from there. We're now going to go into our super bands. So this is where you'll slide the opposite arm and leg away, and then draw it back into your center line and change over to the opposite side. So we're still keeping that nice straight back, so our abs are lifted, our chest is lifted. We've got a nice shoulder blade position. And the hardest part here is I want you to reach the hand and the foot as far away as you can on the mat, then lift them up and see how high you can lift them without losing your back position. So here we're really looking at your lower back. So think of pulling pubic bone to navel, drawing in through the lower abs. Imagine you've got a tray of drinks resting on your lower back. You'll lift the arm and leg, making sure we don't drop the belly button and spill those imaginary drinks. So just nice and easy here, sliding away opposite arm and leg. We need to also focus on keeping centered, so make sure that your hips don't sway left and right as you swap over with your supporting knee. So you keep your belly button right in the middle between both knees, and you're keeping that alignment, getting that nice stretch away. We're really working on your bottom on one side with the opposite shoulder as you lift, and then the abdominals drawing in nice and tight to keep that elongation through our lower back position. And then when you're ready, you'll slide all the way back in, and we'll go for one more here, stretching away. And then drawing back, and then pushing into a child's pose. So send your knees wide, push your bottom back to your heels, rest your chest down to the floor, and just relax your weight into your forehead, and you'll just hold this nice stretch here. And then we'll come back up, and we're going to push into a down dog. So tucking the toes underneath you, pushing back and away. So we're lifting the hips up nice and high, and then we're going to walk it out with the feet. So you're just rolling through one ankle to the other ankle. So bending through one knee and straightening the opposite knee as you push that heel down. And just get a nice stretch on both sides. And then push both heels down. Hold the stretch here. Breathe into it. And then from here we'll release and go back down to hands and knees, and then we'll go all the way to the floor into your swan dive next. So forehead resting onto your little cushion or your folded up towel, elbows into a W shape. So we've got elbows by the waist and hands wider than the mat. We're going to point the toes away, lift through the belly button and push your pubic bone down, so you've got a tuck of the tailbone. And then we're going to float the forehead off and lift the collarbones away. So we're going into sort of mini swans here. So it's where you want to be lifting through your upper back, but we're keeping our lower back nice and long. So you're really focusing on your core tightening on this one. So pull the pubic bone up to the belly button, tuck the tailbone underneath you, And if you feel you can control the movement without dropping the belly button down, you can take it all the way into the dart. So this is where you'll have your arms by your sides, you'll just have them floated, little fingers pointing up. And as you lift the upper back, you're sliding your hands towards your feet. So we're focusing on getting as much lift as we can through the upper back, keeping the neck long, and then making sure we've got that core control the whole way through. So now we've just got 4 more lifts to go, and then lengthening the spine as you lower back down, keeping the abdominals drawn in as you lift. See how high you can take the collarbones away from the floor, see how far you can take those fingertips towards the feet, and then drawing all the way up, lengthening the spine, and then lengthening as we layer back down towards the mat. Here we've got your last lift all the way up, and then you slowly lower back down, and then we'll push back into a child's pose once more. So here, just really relaxing back from that extension. Just let all the weight rest into your forehead, let the tummy muscles relax, let the back relax, really feel that length all the way through. And then from here, pushing all the way back up to hands and knees, and then we're going to roll to your side. So here we're going to go into some clams. So set yourself up onto your side. You can have that head cushion between your ear and your arm. You're going to lengthen out, shoulders are stacked, hips are stacked, and then we're keeping the knees bent forwards, heels together. So we're turning out the top knee for your clam level 1. Your focus here as you're doing it is to imagine that you're lying against a wall, and you'll have your head, shoulders, bottom and heels against this imaginary wall, so they're all in line with each other. You're then going to make sure you've got a nice flat back into this imaginary wall. So you've tucked your tailbone underneath you, you've pulled your pubic bone up to your navel, and you've dropped your ribs down using that nice core connection. So think of these imaginary springs that sit between your ribs and hips. I want you to pull them in together. So now you're squeezing the knee up, it's moving up and down. We just keep it moving so we don't relax as we lower back down. We just keep going with the movement and get that nice squeeze all the way up. So a couple more squeezes here before we move into our next level up. And then from here, ankles will lift. So ankles stay lifted now the whole time. We push those heels together. You can push down into the bottom leg, into the mat a little bit if you want to. Now you've lengthened the top waist away, so I want you to imagine you've got a little mouse house underneath your lower waist, and you're still maintaining this throughout the whole movement. You've still got that tuck under of the tailbone, and your watch point so that you don't roll backwards, so you keep the hips stacked one on top of the other, and the top hip doesn't roll back as the knee lifts. We keep squeezing out with the knee as much as we can, so get a nice good turnout, really focus on lifting the knee as far as it'll go. We can push down into the opposite knee to give you some opposition there with this one. We're still pulling pubic bone up to navel, so we're not arching our back as we go. And then we're about to move to level 3, so you're floating clam. So bottom leg drops back down, foot's now floppy onto an imaginary step with that top leg. You keep the foot still as if it's on that imaginary step the whole time as you just turn out with the knee. So you're getting that nice push out. Now here with the level 3, this is where it should start to be aching a little bit into your bottom. If you're not feeling this in your bottom, roll the hips forwards just a little bit more. So keep those hips either stacked or forwards, whichever you prefer, and then continue with this nice turnout here, keeping that hip position nice and still, squeezing the bottom to do the work, making sure it's coming all from the glutes. The abdominals are there just to help you keep your pelvis nice and still, so you should feel the abdominals are working a little bit, and then relax down and you can just give it a pat and a rub. And now we're going to change over to the opposite side, so either rolling over the other way or turning around on the mat so you can still face the TV. Now lengthen out again, so you're stacked against that imaginary wall, shoulders stacked, hips stacked, knees are bent forwards, ankles are stacked. You've lengthened the top waist away and you've tucked the tailbone underneath you. You can rest the top hand onto your hip just so you can feel what the hip's doing. I always prefer just to feel it, so if I know if I'll roll back, I've got my hand there to guide me. So we're turning out with your level 1 with the ankles down. So heels down, nice big squeeze out. We're keeping the movement going the whole time. And you're drawing in through the tummy, especially as you lift the knee. So pull pubic bone to navel. Feel the abs drawing in more as you lift. So the higher you go, the more you have to work your abdominals here. We're making sure the pelvis stays either stacked or a little bit forwards, whichever you prefer. So if you're not quite feeling it into the glutes, do roll the hips a bit more forwards. It'll help you feel it just that little bit more into the glutes. And you want to almost feel like that top leg is like a heavy, floppy, dead weight the whole time. So you're allowing the whole leg to relax. The calf should be relaxed. And the only thing that squeezes as the knee lifts is your bottom muscles. So now up to level 2, we'll lift those heels up and then continue from there. We've still got that length in the waist. You've got that imaginary mouse house underneath your lower waist. You're maintaining that. As you get that lift, you can push down into the bottom knee. We're pulling pubic bone up to belly button, drawing in through the tummy muscles still. And we're getting that nice resistance by pushing down into the bottom knee as we lift up through the top knee. Another watch point as you do your clams is that your neck and shoulders feel nice and relaxed. You make sure there's no tension in the top of the body. It's just the bottom muscles. We're really getting a good squeeze as we turn out. And then don't forget, we're trying to flatten that back into the imaginary wall. So you're tucking tailbone under, using those glutes to get a bit more tuck as well the whole time as we do this. Now we're going to level 3. So bottom ankle drops down, top ankle's resting onto that imaginary step. We keep it there nice and still as the knee turns up and down. So we continue with the clamshell movement, but we keep the ankles still in midair, which is quite tricky when you can't see it. So if you have got a mirror that's a full length one that you can use, it's a really useful tool with this exercise. We're keeping the pelvis still, it's not rolling back. If you need to pull the hip forwards a little bit more to get it more into the glutes, then do. You should be feeling the ache and the burn into the bottom muscles by now with this exercise. So a few more squeezes here at your level 3. Again, keeping the leg feeling like a heavy, floppy dead weight, so the calf and the ankle is nice and relaxed on that step. And you're making sure all the work happens at the bottom muscles to get that nice turnout. And then when you're ready after this one, relax. Good, give it a pat and a rub. And now we'll roll over onto our back. We can just have a nice little stretch out now from here. So whichever was the first leg that you used, cross that ankle over the knee, then pull up, bring your hands, interlock them behind the thigh on the other leg, and pull into your chest as much as you can into a nice stretch. Now while you're here, I want you to do some pelvic tilts. So just rolling the pelvis forwards and backwards. And what you should feel is as you roll the tailbone away towards your coccyx, you should feel the stretch just intensify a little bit more here. You can continue with the rock of the pelvis, or you can hold it and just keep the stretch wherever you feel the best stretch. And then change over to the opposite side. So crossing the ankle over the knee, pull the thigh in towards you, pull in for a nice big stretch, turn the knee out, and then start with your pelvic tilts, rolling forwards and backwards. So just a nice tilt both ways. And then you can hold it here towards your coccyx if you want to, or you can continue with the tilt and kind of just intensify and then release the stretch. Just a nice easy glute stretch just to relax after our clam exercises. And then bringing your feet back down. Good. Okay, so palms facing up, shoulders nice and relaxed. We'll roll into our spine curl next. So you'll have your heels a bit closer towards your bottom as you do this. Dig down into the heels. And then when you're ready, you're going to tuck the tailbone underneath you using the abdominals, so pulling pubic bone to navel. And then from here, squeezing the glutes, feel the tailbone lift, and then one vertebrae at a time, peeling up, curling up into the spine curl. Keep those ribs drawn in the whole time so we don't flare them up at the top. Shoulders and neck should feel really relaxed. If you need to take away cushion underneath your head, if you find there's a bit of strain into your neck, then do. Or don't go quite as high if you're feeling it into your neck, but you want to be really relaxed through the upper body. And then using your bottom muscles as much as you can to lift into this spine curl. So we tuck using the abs, then we push down into the heels, clench the glutes, roll the tailbone, lift all the way through, keeping the abs drawn in so the ribs are still tucking down, and then concave into the chest, round the ribs down, round the lower back down, and then the tailbone's the very last thing to lower back down, and you relax to neutral. And then we roll again, so nice squeeze all the way up, tucking the tailbone, pushing down into the heels, clenching into the glutes, and then rounding the back as if we're trying to lengthen it as we roll back down. So I always think of your spine being like a beaded necklace, and we're peeling one bead at a time off this imaginary table, and then we're lowering one bead at a time all the way back down, trying to get that length all the way through. Good. Now going into a neutral spine position. Relax now. You're going to bring your hands behind your head, so interlocking the fingers, cup the back of the head, make sure the neck's relaxed. And we're going to curl up into your abdo prep now. So elbows should be in your periphery, shoulders away from the ears. Take a breath in to prepare, and then breathe out to do the curl up. and then inhale to lower. So imagine you're blowing a candle out here and the candle's just between your knees as you curl through, and then inhale wide into those ribs as you lower back down. So as you're curling up, you're trying to get your ribs to tuck down as if they're disappearing into the abdomen, and then as you lower it, you just relax through the ribs and take a good breath in. So you're going at the pace of your breath, so take this as slow or as fast as you need, but you're focusing on your breath, and every time you breathe out, those ribs slide down, you curl through the mid-back to lift. You're making sure that the movement happens just from the mid-back, the head goes along for the ride, and that we've also got that nice neutral curve in our lower back, so we're not tilting the pelvis stays nice and still. Now we're going to add in a scissor lift and an oblique curl up. So we're curling up, continue with the breath, so it's a breath out as you come up, so breathing out, curling through, you're twisting over to the knee that you're scissoring up into tabletop. So nice breath out. Inhale, release, and then exhale, curl up. Inhale, release. We're going to keep this going. You're focusing on keeping the pelvis nice and still, so you still have the neutral curve in your lower back. And then we're making sure the neck stays nice and relaxed. So you're supporting the weight of the head with the hands. You've got a strong frame through the arms. You should feel your shoulder muscles and your arm muscles working to support the weight of the head. And then again, that nice lift and twist through the torso, making sure it's happening through from the ribs. So we have 2 more to each side now, so just taking your time, focusing on using the pace of your breath, really utilising that out breath to get that contraction down through the ribs, get that nice core control. Pelvis is staying nice and still. Here we go for our last one to each side before moving on to our toe taps exercise next. So coming up, your last one here, nice big twist through the ribs, keep the pelvis nice and still. Lower back through, and then from here take a quick reset and relax. So now you'll just bring your arms by sides, palms facing up, so the arms are nice and heavy. We'll flatten the back, and then we'll float up into a double tabletop. Ribs are going to be down. On your breath out, you'll lower the toes down, and then inhale to float up. So we exhale and lower. Inhale, rise up. Exhale and lower. The hardest part when you're doing toe taps is making sure the legs are nice and relaxed, so you're not using your thigh muscles here and your hip flexors. You want to use your core muscles, so think of those imaginary springs that sit between your hip bones and your rib cage. Draw those imaginary springs in, keep your core muscles pulled in, and use those muscles to lower the legs down into these alternating toe taps. And you've got a few options when you do toe taps. So you can start to add in a curl up, so we'll curl through and toe tap down. And here using the pace of the breath again, so breathing out as we curl up and lower the toe down. Inhale and float the leg back up. The other thing we can do is we can start to lengthen the lever, so you can start to reach the toes further away as well. Or if you're finding it that you're feeling it in your back muscles, flatten a little bit more and make the lever shorter. So this is where we'll bend the knee more and toe tap down a bit closer towards you. But if you want more of a challenge, you toe tap a little bit further away. So you've got a few different options when it comes to the toe taps exercise, but you're focusing on keeping absolute pelvic stability. So take a little peek at your stationary knee. Could you balance a full glass of water that's full to the brim on top of that knee as you go through the curl up and the toe tap? Can you keep it really still so the pelvis is staying absolutely still? So it always comes back to pelvic stability in Pilates here. And then our second objective is abdominal control, making sure we're not doming. And then well done, bring those knees into the chest, give them a little bit of a hug and relax through from there. And then now we're going to take it all the way into your hundreds exercise next. So flat back still, bring the knees and ankles together, zip them through, come up into your double tabletop, and then curl up, reaching the fingertips away. Your options here are to keep the knees into a double tabletop or to stretch them away into a double leg stretch. And then we'll start with 100 beats. So as if you're slapping your hands onto water, nice strong arms, they're nice and straight. We're making little perturbations here. They're really strong. We're curling through the upper body. You've got that nice curl up all the way through, so the neck stays nice and long at the back of the neck. Shoulder blades should be pulling down to the floor, so you should feel the tips of the shoulder blades pressing down the whole time. And we'll use the breath, so we'll inhale for 5, and then exhale for 5, and then inhale for 5, and then exhale for 5, And then relax the knees into the chest. Well done. Give them a little bit of a hug. Just draw them all the way in, and you can rock left to right here and take a nice deserved rest. And then when you're ready from here, place the feet back down to the floor. We're going to go into some hip twists. So palms out a little bit wider now. And we're going to rock our hips over from left to right. So you keep the knees together and the ankles together so the ankles stay stacked as you do this. Roll the pelvis over as far as you can. And you can look over to the opposite side with your head. So you get the full spine twist. Almost imagine you're wringing a cloth out as you're doing this one. The main objective is to really send the pelvis over as far as you can. So imagine you've got little car headlight beams shining out your hips. Send that beam as far over as you can, so you're really pushing that top hip through as far as possible. And then just stay nice and relaxed through top half, keeping those shoulder blades pulled down into the mat. You can always enjoy this by holding the stretch if you want, rather than doing a TikTok mobility movement. Entirely up to you with this one. And then you can take it up a notch if you want. So from here, you'll float the legs up into a double tabletop. You glue the knees and ankles together, and then continue the same movement. So we'll rock left and right, but the ankles stay off the floor. This just means we have to use our obliques as we roll back into center. Keep those palms nice and wide, keep the shoulder blades down, and you can use the shoulders to help you go as far as you can into this twist. You can still be sending the nose over to the opposite side, so you're just looking over to the opposite way with your head as you do this one, but send the pelvis as far as you comfortably can. And as you roll back through center, you should be keeping a nice flat back position here. So you roll back through to flat back and then rolling over. Now, another level up, if you want to add a bit more oblique movement in, is just to send the arms up to the ceiling. So palms facing up to the ceiling, and then shoulder blades staying heavy. You won't be able to rock as far with the legs. If you notice, I'm not going quite as far with this one, but I'm having to use my abdominals much more. So it's much more oblique, this exercise, making sure that we keep the shoulder blades fixed down. So shoulder blades are down. We're rolling from left to right on the pelvis, making sure we don't send any shoulder blades off the floor at the same time. So just a nice easy movement from left to right, keeping collarbones wide, and using obliques to pull back through to center. It's a good control exercise, this one. And then pulling back to center and lowering the legs all the way back down to the mat. Okay, we're going to do some stretching now. So pull one knee into your chest nice and tight, slide the opposite leg away, and as you're pulling one leg in as tight as you possibly can, try and think of sending the opposite knee down into the mat so you're really lengthening away. Now we'll hold behind the thigh, pull it in tight, nice and still, and then we're going to just straighten out through the knee and then bend. So doing a little bend and stretch. Now I want you to keep the thigh pulled into the chest as much as you can. So it may be that you don't fully straighten at the top because you've pulled the thigh in so far. But that's the focus, is keep the thigh in, and we're just straightening as much as we can as we do this exercise here. So nice bend and stretch. So you're stretching and then releasing, and then stretching and then releasing, and then straighten all the way out now. Now hold as high as you can, so you walk your hands up your leg, hold this stretch, try and straighten the knee out as much as you can, and then from here we're going to point and flex through the ankle. So flexing towards you and then pointing away, flexing towards you and pointing away. You should feel a nice deep stretch down the back of the knee now, going into, might be a bit sciatic stretch this one, depending where you're tightest. But as you pull the toes towards you, if you increase that stretch, you get a little bit more neural stretch for this one. So then release from there, we'll change to the other side. So folding the knee into the chest first of all, bring it in as tight as you can, just give your knee a hug. Straighten the opposite leg out, push the knee down into the floor, get that length. And then when you're ready from here, we'll grab behind the thigh and still pull the thigh into your chest. Then we'll straighten the knee and then we'll bend the knee. So we're straightening and bending, stretching and releasing. And again, you may not fully straighten, that's okay. Keep pulling the thigh towards your chest as much as you can. A nice easy stretch with this one. Just trying to get as much movement, see if you can go just a little bit further each time you straighten all the way up. That's it, nice and easy. Straightening through and then releasing, and then straightening and releasing. releasing, and now into full stretch. Walk the hands up, pull towards you, and then flex the toes and point the toes. Flex and point. Try and straighten your knee as much as you can as you do this one. So really lengthening the leg. It's like when you flex your toes towards you, it's like you're pushing your heel up to the ceiling with this exercise. So we're mobilizing here, getting a good stretch through the sciatic nerve. Pull those toes towards you, push the heel up. Keep the opposite leg straight out, so you're still pushing the knee down into the mat as you do this exercise. You just get a nice, easy stretch. Mobilizing through. Pointing and flexing, so you can keep going just that little bit further, getting a nice strong stretch, and then we'll release through from there. Now I want you to roll back over, so we're going to go over to hands and knees and then pull up into a kneeling position, and we'll go now into a nice hip flexor stretch. So you've got a nice 90-degree angle of your front knee. You're going to tuck the tailbone underneath you as much as you can, squeeze the glutes, squeeze the tummy. Now push the hips forwards and feel that nice release over the hip flexor. And then you can side bend away from that leg. So say it's your right leg that you're stretching, you're going to lean to your left. You're going to get a nice big stretch. Keep tucking the tailbone under as you push those hips forwards. So think of tucking tailbone under as much as you can. Then bring your hands to the floor, tuck the back toe underneath you, and then push back into a full stretch here, so into triangle pose. So you'll just try and straighten both legs as much as you can. You're trying to push the back heel down into the mat. You're relaxing forwards with your torso over that front leg, just trying to get into a nice hamstring stretch. And then step it back in, so now legs are into parallel. Quick roll down type stretch, and then step back with the opposite leg. Go into triangle pose here. So try to square up your hips, making sure your hips are pointing down. We're getting that nice stretch over the front leg, so we're relaxing through our chest as much as we can, let the upper body relax, and pushing the back heel down as much as possible. And then release the back knee, and we'll go into hip flexor release. So back up into kneeling, 90-degree bend at the front knee. Push the hips forwards, tuck the tailbone underneath you as much as you can. So you're squeezing your bottom and you're squeezing your tummy muscles, trying to pull pubic bone to navel. We can add in that side stretch. So here, if you're stretching your left hip flexor, you'll lean to your right. And keep pushing those hips through, keep tucking tailbone under the whole time as you do this exercise. And then when you're ready, release. Bring your hands down, step it forwards with the back leg, and then relax into your roll down stretch. We'll go into some pendulum swings. So arms are just going to sway around the sides of the legs. Focus with your pendulum swing. It's almost like you've got a dog tail that you're wagging from left to right. So the movement happens from the pelvis and the rest of the body just goes along for the ride. And then come back to centre. And now we're going to squeeze the bottom muscles, tuck the tailbone underneath you, keep this lovely curl through your spine as you roll all the way up. As always, the head should be the very last thing to come all the way up. So we're going to go into another roll down. We'll do a couple of shoulder rolls first, drop those shoulders away from the ears, then tuck the chin in, lengthen through the back of the neck, and then slowly curl forwards one vertebrae at a time, lengthening all the way out. Go nice and floppy, nice and heavy with the upper body. Let all the tension go from the neck. Make sure you're nice and ragdoll-like with this move. Into your pendulum swings again, around to the sides, nice and easy, nice and soft, nice and gentle. And then just get that nice stretch through both sides. Coming back into centre, squeeze through the bottom muscles, tuck that tailbone underneath you. Keep this lovely curl through the spine, and it's once the pelvis comes all the way back to its neutral, you'll just feel it's nice and easy for the rest of the spine then just to restack. The head should be the very last thing to come up. A couple of shoulder rolls at the top again. Drop those shoulders away from the ears, tuck the chin to the chest. Slowly curl it back down to the floor. Arms are dangling like a ragdoll. Neck is nice and heavy. Go nice and floppy all the way down. And then again into your pendulum swings around to the sides. If you want to, you can hook your elbows, so holding on to each elbow with a hand. And again, nice and floppy around to the sides into those pendulum swings. Let yourself get a bit of a stretch through the waist. And then last roll up here, so you'll tuck the tailbone underneath you. Get that squeeze of the glutes, roll the pelvis all the way back. Restack one vertebrae at a time all the way on top. Head's the very last thing to come up. Good, and relax. Now we're going to take it up into a balance exercise now. So we're going to step one foot in front of the other. into our tightrope stance and then close your eyes. So you want to be really relaxed through your ankles and knees here, so soft into the knees. The ankles are going to be wobbling like jelly with this exercise, and then try and relax as much as you can through your torso. So you want a nice tall spine position. You want to be relaxed through the collarbones, let them open and smile to the front of the room. Abdominals and glutes want to be switched on, but they don't want to be gripping. And then we're going to start to add in a little bend into our knees, and then we'll slowly rise back out of this one. So a little rise and fall. Now as you rise out of the movement, so it will soften down, bend down as if we're sinking into quicksand. I want to imagine you're pushing yourself out of quicksand. So you push down into your heels, you feel the back of the legs engaging as you push away with this exercise. So still keeping your eyes closed if you can. This is quite a challenging one. If you need to either open your eyes or rest your fingertips onto the wall next to you, you can do for this exercise. And then release, and we'll change over with the legs. So swapping over your lead leg, so front and back leg change around. We reset, get your balance, and then when you're ready, closing your eyes and trying to hold this position here. If you're on a thick carpet or a thick mat, it will be much harder than if you're on a firm surface like the hard floor. So you can always change up your surface as well if you need more of a challenge or less of a challenge. So again, keeping collarbones smiling to the front of the room, abdominals engaged but not gripping. And then we'll now start to add in that rise and fall. So you'll be bending into your knees, nice soft knee bend, take your time. And then you rise back out of it as though you're pushing your way out of quicksand, and you feel the back of the legs engaging. So taking your time, again, ankles are like jelly, they're wobbling around, the knees are soft, they're absorbing it. And then hopefully your pelvis is staying nice and still, so there's no waving around of the torso. So nice and easy, rising and falling, taking your time with the eyes closed if you can, if not, eyes open or holding on to the wall with fingertips, whichever you prefer. And then well done, open your eyes, relax. Now we can take it into bowlers. I'll just show you side on. So you get your balance onto one leg, hands onto hips to start with. You'll soften and bend into the knee and then tip your pelvis forwards. Then we reach and stretch through the free leg and same arm. And then you slide back all the way into your start position. So from here, bending into the knee as the first point, tipping the hips forwards like you've got quad headlight beam going down to the floor. Reach and stretch, keeping a nice straight spine, and then squeeze all the way back up to your start position, lifting and lengthening tall so you straighten the leg fully. And then again, down into your knee, tip through from the hips. Focus on keeping a nice straight back, so abs are engaged and lifted, chest is lifted. Think like your 4-point kneeling position with that flat back. I want the same thing here as you go into your bowler. So bending at the knee, tipping from the hips, straight spine, lengthen through, make sure we've got a nice long neck as we do this as well. The more knee bend that you get, the more challenge you have with this exercise. So again, tipping down with the knee, folding from the hips, lengthening and stretching the arm and leg as you lengthen through the abdominals and lift the chest, coming all the way back through, and then changing legs. So we'll swap over. So get your balance set first of all, and then tip into the knee, tip through from the pelvis, reach and stretch that free arm and leg, go as high as you can with the arm and leg without letting the belly button drop to the floor, so keeping the abs engaged. And we lift really, really tall in between, so you come all the way up into a nice tall standing posture. The lower you bend into the knee, the harder this exercise will be. So if you need it a bit easier, don't bend the knee too much, but if you want a bit more of a challenge, bend more. Tip from the pelvis, trying to maintain a nice straight spine. This is quite a tricky exercise. The more you lift that free arm and leg, the more likely you are to arch the back, which we don't want. So we want to lift the belly button up, get a squeeze through the glutes, but a squeeze through the abs, lift the chest up open through the upper back. Focus on making sure we're not rounding the upper back, so we keep a nice long neck, a nice straight spine as we get that nice reach all the way away. And then we've just got one last one. Nice big reach and stretch, elongate through, and then come all the way to standing, relax. And now we're going to reset through our posture to finish. So I'm going to get you to just sway your weight forwards and backwards into toes and into heels, and focus on where your pelvis is. So I'm sending my pelvis forwards and backwards, and then set my pelvis in the middle between toes and heels. Then from here we'll go into those pelvic tilts. So imagine your pelvis is a bucket of water. You're tipping the water out through the front and then out through the back, both directions, until you get to your mid position. Then roll the shoulders back and round. Allow the shoulders just to drop heavy towards the floor. Then lift the collarbones up and the sternum up to the ceiling, but then now drop the ribs down, keeping the chest lifted. So we've got this nice straight long upper back. And then feel all the hairs on the back of your neck as if they're standing up and lengthening out, and then relax. Well done.